Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku was the Ghost Rider. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Stopping at the entrance to the main building of the UA, Izuku turned to the main gate with his motorcycle helmet under the right arm. Having a special parking space for his bike, Izuku didn't have to enter the gate like the rest of the students, but nevertheless the huge crowd gathered in front of the school would have intrigued anyone, especially when the crowd was composed of journalists and cameramen. It seems they found out that All Might became a teacher in this school. Thought Izuku looking at the various journalists while they were interviewing all the students who were trying to enter. Tell us what the symbol of peace looks like in front of the class. Ichako seemed embarrassed by the question, but managed to raise her arms as if to show her muscles. How he looks. Super muscly. Yeah. Tell us about All Might, the teacher. Tanya immediately assumed a serious expression, more serious than normal, and said, "Every day with him is a reminder that I'm enrolled at this preeminent educational institution. Beyond his obvious dignity and presence, he's also quite humorous. As we students are privy to observing his many facets, we've been given the opportunity to discover just what makes a top hero a top hero. Also, when All Might is... Wait a minute. You're that kid from the sledge incident. Fuck off," growled Katsuki, ignoring the various journalists. "Does wow dude. You're a mess. Try to be a little presentable." Shota waved them off without care. Today is his day of rest. "You're also interrupting our classes. Please leave." As Shota walked away from the swarm of journalists, Izuku saw how a young woman tried to follow him, only to be blocked by the instantaneous closure of the huge armored gate of the school. Shaking his head when he heard the indignant shouts of the journalists, Izuku turned to go into the school, but then stopped instantly, his eyes wide open. Slowly, he returned to look at the still closed gate, and something inside him began to pulse insistently. His Quirk seemed agitated, as if it were trying to get out by force. "What is this?" His hands began to slowly warm up as the skin crumbled slowly, leaving room for bones wrapped in flames. "What is this feeling so dark and sickening?" "Midoriya." Izuku seemed to snap out from his thoughts when someone spoke to him. Looking at his right, he saw Shota standing a few meters from him with his usual expression halfway between the bored and the resigned. The teacher looked down at his burning hands, and then looked back to Izuku, straight in the eye. Something wrong? Izuku stared at him in silence for a few seconds, and, after glancing at the gate, shook his head. That strange feeling was gone. "No, everything is alright. It just seemed to me to see someone I knew among those journalists," said the young boy before walking inside the building. Shota followed him with his eyes for a few seconds, then he too glanced at the gate. "I do not know why, but I have a bad feeling about this." Class 1A, a few minutes later. "Good work with yesterday's battle training," said Shota sitting down at his desk while looking at the students. "I've looked over your grades and evaluations." After a couple of seconds, he added, "Bakugo, grow up already. Stop wasting your talent." "Got it," said the blonde looking down at his fists. "Also." Shota looked behind Katsuki Midoriya, instigating the enemy and wasting time without concluding a fight can lead to catastrophic results. "Do not repeat what happened yesterday." "Understood." The teacher sighed, looking at the various students. "Now, on to homeroom business. Sorry for the sudden announcement, but today..." "What is it?" "Another brutal pop quiz," thought most of the class, holding their breath. "You'll pick a class president." "Such a normal shoe-like thing," shouted everyone, and then it was a continuous talking one above the other. "I'd like to do it. I want to be president. Lem do it. In my administration, girls will have to show 30 centimeters of thigh. The position was made for me. I want to be a leader. Pick me." "Well, I think this enthusiasm is justified," thought Izuku, looking at the class in normal schools. The position just entails mundane tasks, so nobody really wants to do it, but in the hero course at UA it would mean leading the group. A position suited for a top hero in the making. But I see that not everyone is enthusiastic about this thing. And in fact, besides him, Shoto had not raised his hand, preferring to observe the unfolding of the matter. "Quiet down, everyone." The whole class turned to look at Tenya, who had a tremendously serious expression on his face. Leading the many is a task of heavy responsibility. Ambition does not equate to ability. This sacred office demands the trust of its constituents. If this is to be a democracy, then I put forward the motion. He suddenly raised his trembling hand that our true leader must be chosen by election. This is just a classroom, not Congress. But Ida, we haven't known each other long enough to build any trust, said Tsuyu looking at him, while Ijiro added, and everyone will just vote for themselves. That's precisely why anyone who manages to earn multiple votes will be the best suited individual for the job, explained Tenya before looking at their teacher. Will you allow this, sensei? No matter how you decide, just do it quickly, was the answer as Shota was closing the zipper of his sleeping bag. And so everyone took a piece of paper and wrote a name on it, then putting the sheets inside a box created by Momo with her quirk. Subsequently, after a short count, the names of those who had received the votes were written on the blackboard, and the result was at least unexpected. Fine. So, your president is Yoirozu while your vice president is Midoriya, said Shota while the students were mumbling about the votes. I got 2 votes, thought Izuku looking at the blackboard. I wonder who voted for me. In less than 5 seconds he immediately understood who it was because only 3 names were missing. Tenya, Shoto and Ochako. Since he and Shoto hadn't had any kind of interaction, there was no reason he would vote for Izuku, so he must have voted for Momo just like Izuku. Thus, the 2 anonymous supporters of Izuku were no longer anonymous, even though the green-haired boy was particularly surprised that nobody had noticed that detail. Izuku and Momo stood in front of the class for a brief greeting, and, while Momo seemed particularly happy with the result, her vice seemed at least annoyed or disinterested. Yoirozu was pretty cool while analyzing the battle training and all, said someone in the class. And Midoriya is definitely expert in the field. He can help us a lot. As the murmurs continued to grow, Tenya could not help looking at his desk with a defeated look. Lunch rush cafeteria, lunch break. So many kids here, said Ochako looking around while eating. Besides the hero course, there are also students from the support and business courses. We all come together for lunch and, this rice is tasty. The food is really good. Not at Izuku sitting in front of her. So, care to tell me why did you 2 vote for me? Tenya and Ochako looked at him with surprised eyes. You know, it wasn't really hard. I did not vote for myself. You 2 and Todoroki are the only ones who have not received votes, and I'm pretty sure he voted for Yoirozu, just like me. Which leaves only you 2, explained Izuku with a shrug. I see. Well, I think your grit and decisiveness in a pinch would make you perfectly suited to lead us all. That's why I voted for you, said Tenya eating a spoonful of curry. But didn't you want to be president too, Iida? Asked Ochako looking at him. You've got glasses and everything. And what do the glasses have to do with all this? Thought Izuku with a sweat drop. Again, ambition and suitability are different matters. I humbly made the choice I felt was correct, explained the bespectacled boy. Humbly, repeated Izuku while Ochako looked at their friend with stars in her eyes. The way you talk. Iida, are you a rich kid? Seeing that Izuku and Ochako were staring at him intently, Tenya tried to hide in his plate of food. I do not want people to know it, so I try to hide it, but after a moment of silence, he sighed. Yes. Mine is a renowned hero family, and I'm the 2nd son. Whoa, that's so cool, exclaimed Ochako. Looking at them, Tenya asked, do you know of the turbo hero, Ingenium? Izuku raised an eyebrow while thinking about that name. If I remember correctly, he is a famous hero here in Tokyo. His office should be in a huge building where over 60 sidekicks work. So you're... Yes. He's my brother. Nodded Tenya with a smile while settling his glasses. He leads the people with his unwavering adherence to rules and regulations. A truly beloved hero. It's my admiration for my brother that's inspired my own desire to become a hero. His smile seemed to diminish, becoming almost melancholy, though I realize I'm not yet ready to lead alone. That's why I thought you were the best candidate for that role, Midoriya. Izuku looked at him for a few seconds, before letting out a low chuckle, confusing his 2 classmates to think that I would meet his brother right here. I wonder if you can get faster than him with your quirk. Tenya tilted his head to the side. Forgive my ignorance, but I fear I do not understand. So he didn't tell you, said the green-haired boy with a little grin. About a year ago, Ingenium and I faced each other. Ochako nearly choked with her rice, while Tenya's glasses were so close to falling on the ground that it was almost comical. Almost. What? You fought against my brother? No, nothing like that, said Izuku with a little shrug. That night I had just finished disinvesting an abandoned warehouse when your brother arrived and ordered me to stop. Obviously I ignored him and left the warehouse with my motorbike. He tried to chase me, but as fast as you are with your quirk, my bike is faster. After just 5 minutes in pursuit I left him behind. I have not met him since then. I see. Mumbled Tenya, still shocked about the news. I can understand why he did not tell me about his meeting with you. All over Japan he is the 4th fastest hero, and he never let anyone escape. Not in terms of speed at least. Izuku grinned again. You simply can't hope to catch me with my— He stopped in mid-sentence, widening his eyes with an expression of confusion and shock on his face. His 2 friends looked at him with confusion, which soon turned into concern when they saw him start to tremble slightly. Hey Midoriya. Are you alright? Asked Tenya, raising a hand to touch his friend's shoulder, but he pulled it away when he saw Izuku incinerate the chopsticks in his hand, as the skin on his face slowly began to crumble, devoured by flames under it. Eat it, murmured Achako, trying to contain the tremor of her body. She had already witnessed a transformation of Izuku, but not in this way, and it was frightening her a lot. It's that feeling. Again, growled Izuku, trembling even more while his hands were already wrapped in flames which were consuming his flesh like a hungry beast. What feeling? Midoriya, what's going on? Almost shouted Tenya, feeling that something was definitely wrong with this situation. At first glance it seemed that Izuku was transforming against his will. And that made the second son of the Iida family particularly afraid of the consequences. It's that feeling. Again. This time, Izuku slammed a fist on the table, looking for the first time at his friends, and they both paled instantly when they saw Izuku's face consumed halfway by the flames with the empty right socket, but the iris of his eye was still visible, giving it an extraordinarily macabre and terrifying effect. Sitting near them, a young boy glared at them because of the noise they were making, but his anger quickly blurted out when he saw Izuku's face. What the? His words were immediately overwhelmed by the alarm of the school that resounded throughout the building, surprising all the students. Security level 3 has been broken. An automated voice echoed throughout the room. All students, please evacuate in an orderly fashion. That's when all hell broke loose. As a single entity, all the students started running towards the emergency exit without bothering about the order or evacuating in an orderly fashion. All but 2 students, currently sitting in front of a classmate who was slowly turning into a flaming skeleton under their eyes. Izuku gripped the edges of the table, melting it without care as his face was slowly burning away. Just when both his eyes disappeared into those flames, he managed to look at his friends run. Acting instinctively, Tenya put his left arm around Achako's waist and grabbed her wrist with his other hand, bringing her hand to her chest. It all happened within a second, but for him time seemed to slow down. Uraraka. Make us float. Achako's mind could not even register her classmate's request, that a quirk was already working, and, using the strength of his legs together with his quirk, Tenya jumped backward, away from the table. Just when an explosion of flames destroyed said table, making the whole hall tremble. Several students were thrown to the ground by the explosion, and those closest to Izuku were also wounded by his flames, but that event had the effect of silencing all those present who, paralyzed by fear, could only stare silently at a flaming skeleton who stood in the middle of the room, wrapped in a light haze caused by the contact of the fire sprinkler's water with its flames. At that moment, Tenya slammed into a window of the room, managing to protect Achako from the impact, and, when she cancelled the effect of her quirk, he looked absently out of the window, being surprised to see Shota and present Mick in front of a huge group of journalists. Everyone was looking in his direction, alarmed by the explosion. The press corps, he whispered, still dazed by the impact against the glass, which was definitely resistant. His thoughts about it, however, were interrupted by the sound of approaching steps. Looking over to where he sat a few seconds ago, Tenya widened his eyes as Izuku was walking toward him, with the various students stepping aside to let him pass, fearful of being attacked by the flaming skeleton. Holding tight Achako, he stepped aside like the rest of the students, and Izuku ignored him completely, before smashing the window with a simple fist, sending fragments of glass in all directions, and shocking the journalists who were a few feet away from him. Is that Flaming Centaur? What is he doing here? No way. He's a student. Izuku completely ignored the journalists as he ignored the looks of the 2 heroes near him. Before anyone could ask him something, the roar of an engine was heard in the air, and, from behind a corner of the building, a flaming motorbike came up and stopped just in front of Izuku. The skeleton then grabbed a chain positioned at the side of the bike, and, with a quick movement of the arm, rolled it around his chest and then climbed onto the motorcycle. In a matter of seconds, the journalists had to throw themselves aside to avoid being hit by Izuku, who headed for the main gate, now reduced to a pile of debris. Without stopping, Izuku darted down the street, chasing the origin of that feeling that had driven his quirk to take control. It was so twisted, dark and evil that even the sunlight had not managed to weaken the control of the quirk on the body of Izuku, who had never had such problems during the day. Feeling his target closer and closer, Izuku accelerated again and, ignoring the cries of some passers-by, slipped into an alley just in time to see a sort of black fog at the bottom and a person entering into it. At that moment, Izuku could only see grayish hair and dark clothes, but nothing prevented him from creating a sphere of fire in his right hand and hurling it at that person. Unfortunately, his target entered completely into the mist, which vanished instantly, thus avoiding the ball of fire that hit a rubbish bin, burning it into ashes. Looking around frantically, he realized that he was alone in the alley, and there was no trace of his target. Moreover, that unnerving feeling had disappeared along with that person. It was at that moment that Izuku came to himself, managing to regain control of his body. Placing a hand on his face, Izuku shook his head slightly. What the hell happened? That's what I'd like to know, Midoriya. Izuku looked back and saw Shota walking toward him, while a man who seemed to be made of cement was blocking the alley with his quirk. The news of All Might as a teacher was not enough. Now that they know you're a student, they will not leave us alone. Care to explain? Looking back at where he saw the black mist, Izuku said, someone was there. I do not know who he or she was, but they practically forced my quirk to take control. Since I started using my quirk, I have never felt such a distorted and wicked feeling. All the villains I have faced up to now seem to be school bullies in comparison. Shota narrowed his eyes. Probably he was following the same person who destroyed the front gate. I do not like it. Aizawa, we should go back. The principal will have his work to do with this situation, and it would be better to keep a low profile as much as possible, said the other hero walking toward them. Shota nodded before looking at Izuku. Midoriya, go back to school, but try to pass through uncrowded streets, also as soon as you can return normal, so as not to arouse too many suspicions. What will you say to the press? The principal will think of something. Now go, said Shota with a shrug, and, after a nod, Izuku left the alley. What do you think about it, Aizawa? Asked the man behind him. The situation could get drastically worse now that the journalists have seen Midoriya. I know, but it was destined to happen. If not now, for sure at the sports festival, replied Shota with a sigh. Let's go back, the day it's not over. Class 1A, a few hours later. Well, as you have probably seen or heard, the situation is not the best, said Shota sitting at his desk. The principal has already called a press conference to explain the presence of Midoriya in this school, and for sure the journalists will be even more numerous, now that they know they can interview All Might and Flaming Centaur at the same time. So, given the recent events, it would be better to remove Midoriya from the role of vice president, and entrust that task to someone else. Izuku said nothing, having no problem with that decision, but then their teacher turned to him. Midoriya, do you have someone in mind? Some of the other students looked at Shota, then at Izuku and back to Shota. Aizawa-sensei. Is it right? I mean, after what happened in the hall, said Denki, looking a bit insecure of his words. Shota sighed again. Everyone, you must know that Izuku's transformation wasn't spontaneous. Someone or something made him transform against his will. Seeing their shocked expressions, he added, before accepting his application for registration, we did some tests, and we are sure it was not a spontaneous transformation. We are also close to finding out who or what caused the accident. The various students seemed to calm down, and some glanced apologetically at Izuku, who merely nodded back at them. He certainly could not be angry with them since they did not know each other well yet, and they had seen him during one of his rather violent moments. His thoughts, however, were centered on that person who he had seen fading into the black fog. Whoever it was definitely dangerous if the aura of evil that emanated meant something. So, Midoriya, anyone in mind? Asked again Shota with an annoyed tone of voice. Yes, Iida is perfect for the role. Nodded Izuku, pointing at Tenya, who looked at him in surprise. Yeah, Iida helped a lot of students after you left with your bike, said Ijiro with a big grin. True. He was also trying to guide the students toward the exit in a civil and orderly manner. Added Rakido with a nod, and the others nodded as well except a few. Whatever. Just get on with it. What a waste of time. Hissed Shota, glaring at them with narrowed eyes, making them shiver. After standing up, Tenya stood next to Momo, in front of the whole class. I'll accept the job then. I hope to be useful, Yuirozu. If you need something, do not hesitate to ask. Right? Let's do our best. Nodded Momo with a little sweat drop while feeling serene in knowing that her position as president was not at risk. Now that it's over, open your book. The day it's not over, ordered Shota, and most of the class groaned at the thought of the next hours of boredom. At the same time, however, the school principal was in front of what remained of the gate together with 3 teachers of the institute. With his hands behind the back, the little humanoid animal looked at the piles of rubble with a serious look. No ordinary reporter could have done this. Someone instigated this whole affair. As always says that Midoriya has transformed because of the presence of someone extremely evil. Said a woman behind him looking at the gate. They are making fun of us. The principal remained silent for a few seconds, then looked at the others. Make sure no one has infiltrated the complex. Keep the alert level 2 until we have fixed the gate. I want at least 5 teachers always present inside the institute. Yes, sir, said 2 of them walking back, while the oldest of them, a little woman with gray hair, looked at the principal. What are you going to do, Nezu? Or now I will reinforce the school's defense systems with the addition of some security cameras. We cannot allow students to be endangered so easily. Today's was just a message, but I am sure that soon we will be forced to act against this new threat, explained Nezu, looking back at the gate one last time. Difficult times awaited him and his school, and unfortunately for them, the students were too close to the eye of the impending storm. Class 1A, the next day. Now, for today's basic hero training, said Shota, walking inside the class after the lunch break. This time All Might, myself and 1 other will supervise you. What are we going to do, Aizawa-sensei? Asked Hanta, raising his hand. Some of his classmates had wondered if the pain between his legs had already passed, but no one had asked Hanta about it, so as not to remind him of that horrible moment. Prepare yourself for disaster relief, from fires to floods. Shota showed them a card with the word rescue on it. It's rescue training. Rescue, huh? Sounds like another rough day, remarked Enki, looking at his classmates. On his right, Mina grinned. Right. I cannot wait to start. Come on. This is what being a hero's all about. I'm pumped, added Ijiro, raising a fist. I'll be right at home in the flood. Ribbit, said Tsuyu, as always with her completely neutral expression. Hey, I'm not done. A quick glare from Shota, and the class was again silent. Raising a remote control, he activated the secret compartments of the class, showing their costumes. It's up to each of you whether or not you wear your costumes, as some of them are ill-suited to this sort of activity. The training site is a bit remote, so we'll be going by bus. That's all. Get ready. And with that, all the students went for their costumes. A few minutes later, the whole class was ready to leave next to a school bus. Line up according to your ID numbers, shouted Aida, pointing at the bus. Fill those seats in an orderly fashion. Shouldn't that be your job? Asked Kyoka, looking at the class president, who sighed. Yes. But Aida wanted everything to be perfectly neat, so he asked me to manage the seats on the bus, explained Momo before noticing something. Where's Midoriya? Just when the others noticed his absence, the young boy arrived on board his motorcycle, but with the addition of a motorcycle helmet to cover his entire head. Stopping next to his classmates, Izuku raised the helmet visor. I'm ready, we can leave. Why did you get your bike? Asked Chako with a raised eyebrow, while most of the boys were looking at his vehicle with stars in their eyes. You never know when it might come in handy, and I do not like leaving it alone, explained Izuku with a shrug. TSK? Bike nerd, growled Katsuki, getting on the bus with the rest of the class. Izuku rolled his eyes in annoyance. After his humiliation, Katsuki had become quieter, but he was still an ass with many of the others, and, although he no longer tried to openly challenge Izuku, the blonde boy hadn't stopped showing disdain for the older boy. In all honesty, Izuku did not care much. At least he had made Katsuki desist from continuing to provoke him to start a fight. That said, he lowered the visor again and set off on his motorbike, following the bus to the outside of Tokyo. After a short journey of about 20 minutes, during which Izuku would swear he saw Katsuki ready to jump to Denki's throat for something he had said, the class found itself in front of a huge dome-shaped building. After entering, the students were amazed to see various catastrophic scenarios reproduced in various parts of the building. Whoa, look at that. It's huge. Maybe it's bigger than UA. Is this Universal Studios Japan? There's the flood zone, landslide zone, conflagration zone, and many others. Every disaster and accident you can imagine, said a strange genderless voice that made all the students turn towards the main staircase, where they saw a person dressed in a kind of space suit. I built this facility myself, and only recently I managed to expand it. I call this place the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. So it really is USJ, thought some of the students, while Mira pointed at the newcomer. It's the Space Hero, 13. a gentleman hero specialized in rescue scenarios. I love 13, shouted Achako, jumping on the spot with a huge smile on her face. Ignoring the enthusiasm of his students, Shota approached his colleague. 13, where's All Might? I thought he was meeting us here. About that, senpai. 13 moved closer to him. It seems that there were some emergencies, and he had to go to the other side of Tokyo to stop some villains. He called me a little while ago and told me that he will try to hurry up to be here before the end of the lessons. The height of irrationality. He's a teacher now. Well, so be it. Let's get started, said Shota, looking away. We should be on guard. Just in case. Before we do, I have 1 or 2 points to explain. Or 3. Or 4. Said 13 while the student's foot dropped. As I'm sure many of you are aware, my quirk is called Black Hole. It can suck in and tear apart anything. And you've used it to save people in all sorts of disasters, added Minu with a smile while Achako was nodding so quickly that she left after images of her head. Indeed. However, my quirk could easily kill. I've no doubt there are some among you with similar abilities. 13 glanced quickly at Izuku before resuming. In our super-powered society, the use of quirks is heavily restricted and monitored. It may seem that this system is a stable one, but we must never forget that it only takes one wrong move with an uncontrollable quirk for people to die. They raised a hand towards Shota. During Aizawa's physical fitness test, you came to learn of your own hidden potential. They raised the other hand. Through All Might's battle training, you experienced the danger that your respective quirks can pose to others. This class will show you a new perspective. You will learn how to utilize your quirks to save lives. Looking at the students, they saw that they had their unwavering attention. Your powers are not meant to inflict harm. I hope you leave here today with the understanding that you're meant to help people. With a deep bow, they concluded their speech. That is all. I thank you for listening. He's so great. Bravo. Bravo. You're a real hero. While his classmates were cheering for 13, Izuku stared down at his own hands with a faraway look. Help people, huh? Behind them, Shota, who was leaning against the railing, pointed towards the central plaza of the building. Great. First off. Suddenly, a light sound caught his attention and, looking towards the plaza, he saw a sort of black hole appearing from nothing, expanding more and more. The pro-hero narrowed his eyes, feeling the hairs on the back of his head stand on end, and after a few moments, a hand appeared from that strange black fog, closely followed by a head whose face was covered by an amputated hand. However, a lonely red eye was clearly visible between the fingers of that hand, and a simple look was enough for Shota to understand the gravity of the situation. Huddle up and don't move, shouted Shota, surprising the students who looked at him, thus missing the face of Izuku, who was looking at the ground with a strong twitch in his eyes. 13. Protect the students. Meanwhile, the fog widened several meters, and dozens of people began to come out of it. First of all, a young boy whose upper body was covered with several amputated hands, immediately flanked by 2 huge black muscular creatures with their brains on display. The heroes in training looked down as well, and Ijiro asked, "Who the heck are those?" No one seemed to notice the sudden increase in the surrounding temperature. More battle robots, wondered Mina, like during the entrance exam. The slight noise produced by the crackling of flames rose in the air, immediately overhung by Shota's voice. Don't move. Those are villains. The explosion that followed that inhuman roar knocked the students and the 2 heroes to the ground, attracting the attention of the criminals below. Among them, a man with a gas mask and horns just had the time to see a column of flames before being crushed to the ground by someone who shattered his skull with a foot, killing him instantly and raising a cloud of dust. For the surrounding villains, time seemed to slow down. They had just come out of the portal created by one of them, ready to kill some brats, when a sudden explosion had caught them off guard, and, soon after, something had crushed one of them. Slowly, they saw something emerge from the cloud of dust and smoke, and all the fighting spirit they had had up to that point was swept away, leaving room for the purest form of fear. A white skull wrapped in flames. Empty sockets able to look into the deepest of their souls. A chain set on fire with a small scythe that scraped the ground. A slight growl that seemed to come out of the depths of hell. Over the years, few things had managed to become so truthful, and at the same time exaggerated, that they could shake even the depths of the criminal world. The first was the arrival of the Emperor of the Underworld, he who dominated everything from the darkness. All villains feared him, and many of them had tried to get his attention to be recognized by him. The second was the opposite of the first. All Might had become in a few years the Black Man for the villains, an imposing and threatening figure that no villain had the courage to face openly. However, both paled in front of Flaming Centaur's presence. A demon from hell with the sole purpose of killing them all, from the first to the last. Many villains had even decided to change lives to save themselves from his fury, and many had tried to fight against him. None of them survived. At that moment, all those stories, all those legends about Flaming Centaur were echoing in the minds of all the villains around him. Some of them fell to their knees, now resigned to their end, others took a step back, hoping to escape from his flames. Why is he here? We are doomed. He will kill us. This was not part of the agreement. Shouted a villain looking at the boy with hands on his body. You told us about All Might and some brats. You didn't tell us that he was here. Flaming Centaur. Said the boy looking at the skeleton without showing fear. I thought the news about your presence at the UA were just lies invented by some journalists, since there were no images to confirm their words. Instead they seemed to be right. He looked at the other students who were again on their feet, looking down at the villains, and All Might is not here. Looks like we'll have to lure him out by killing some of his students. You? He looked back at Flaming Centaur, who was pointing at him guilty. I do not know what you mean, but I did not come here for you. Although you've killed many possible recruits for my cause. If you insist, I will kill you too. Said the boy, tilting his head to the side. Izuku growled at him, and after rolling it over his head, he threw the side of his kusarigama towards the boy. Nomu. With surprising speed for one of its eyes, the creature to his right, which had a face similar to a bird's beak, blocked the weapon with one hand, before it could hit its master. Izuku did not seem to react to the failure of his attack, but before he could retract the chain, the creature named Nomu jerked him forward, causing Izuku to fly toward them. When he was close to them, Izuku prepared to use his flames to burn his target, but the second Nomu, which had only its lower jaw without even the eyes, raised both the arms and, joining its hands like a mallet, hit Izuku from above. The impact generated a violent shockwave that knocked many of the villains to the ground, but the pale boy did not pay much attention to them, and, when Nomu raised its arms, he saw the ground reduced to an expanse of rubble, and no trace of Izuku, if not the side protruding out of the rubble. So much for that unstoppable monster. Said the boy looking at his fellow villains. Don't stay there doing nothing, go kill those kids. The various villains seemed to recover from the shock. Flaming Centaur had lost. He had been defeated. So he was not as strong as the story said. With a new energy flowing inside them, excited by having just seen Flaming Centaur's defeat, they shouted in approval, and turned to the staircase that separated them from their victims. The pale boy advanced along with the Nomus, but after a few steps, he heard the noise of some rubble being moved behind him. Before he could turn around, a gloved hand grabbed his right shoulder, hands whole. And immediately afterwards he was turned with a strong tug, making him end up face to face with an unscratched Izuku, who already had his right arm bent backwards, ready to punch him in the face. Both Nomus couldn't react in time when Izuku launched a violent fist aimed at their master, but, before Izuku could hit his enemy, a wall of sand rose between the two, blocking the fist of Izuku. Slowly, to his right the sand began to move as if having its own life, assuming a humanoid form without any detail. Took your time, I see. Said the pale boy looking at the sand mass. I'm here now. That's what matters. Replied the sand with a distorted male voice, before looking at Izuku, who was looking back with a growl, and his fist still blocked by the wall of sand. He was not expected to be here. I know, that's why you are going to stop him while we go on with the plan. Said the boy with a hidden grin. Kurogiri. Move them. Behind Izuku, the black fog had now assumed a humanoid shape with two bright yellow eyes and metal plates, on what appeared to be the neck in that form. With a movement of the arms, the same fog from before formed around Izuku and the mass of sand, swallowing them in a few moments, and thus making them vanish into thin air. Now what, Tomyu or Shigaraki? Asked Kurogiri, looking at the pale boy, who looked back at the students, taking note of Shota, who was running toward them with a pair of strange glasses over his eyes. Now? Repeated Tomyu with a sick grin. Now we make sure that the symbol of peace come to us to meet his end. Kill that hero. Seeing that Flaming Centaur wasn't there anymore, the villains shouted again and charged Shota at the base of the staircase. Yusche, Sandstorm Zone, at the same time. Izuku stared in silence at the mass of sand in front of him as it changed shape, becoming more defined until it assumed different colors, finally becoming a man in his late 30s with short brown hair, brown trousers and a green striped shirt. The two observed each other without saying anything as the wind howled while raising sandbanks from the surrounding dunes. What the fuck? What the hell is he doing here? Shouted a man with scales on his skin after seeing Izuku standing in the middle of their group. There was a change of plans. Tomura said, I have to deal with him. said the man without looking away from Izuku. You should go away or you'll die. Are you crazy, Flint? He will kill you, shouted another villain before being cut vertically in half, much to everyone's horror. The now named Flint saw the scythe dangling from Izuku's hands, while the boy was still looking at him. None of you will leave this place. New flames rose from the ground around Izuku, fighting the wind of the sandstorms, as the various criminals tried to escape from his fury. Meanwhile, Flint's legs merged with the sand beneath him, and his right arm grew larger and bigger. Rising higher than Izuku, the man looked at him with a look devoid of hate, but at that moment Izuku did not even notice. The presence of so many villains had practically forced his Quirk to take control again, and Izuku couldn't stop it. All those criminals were already dead, only they did not know it yet. For what it's worth, I did not want to go this far, but I have to do it. For my daughter, said Flint before throwing himself at Izuku with all his power. In response, Izuku gripped the chain in his hands, setting it on fire. Your funeral, dirtbag. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what-if stories and other amazing videos coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious.